Today I'd like to show you some of the new features in Vault 2016. Here, this slide shows a couple of the key things that have been improved with Vault 2016. Some of these are in the basic version, and the majority are in the professional version. As far as the first one there, the CAD integrations, now Autodesk has been kind of on the forefront of being able to share data between some of the other CAD tools out there, such as SolidWorks, Creo, ProEngineer, and a few others. Any CAD within Inventor and Vault now allows us to open up an Inventor assembly, add some parts to it, but also add models from the native software from SolidWorks or Creo, and check those into Vault and be able to actually keep the reference back to the original SolidWorks or Creo file, which allows that instead of converting it through an IGES or converting it to an Inventor part and losing some of the parameters and different geometry, feature information, we can just maintain that same link to the original file. You get a new one in from a supplier, check it out, add that new part to the mix, and then save it, check it back in, and maintain those links. So very powerful, and we've got a lot of customers, obviously, and a lot of companies out there that use a variety of CAD products. So that's definitely a nice addition in 2016. The copy design is another good tool out there, and really one of the main reasons to go to Vault to be able to take old designs and copy them. So they've just updated the interface there with copy design. I'll show a little bit of that here in a minute. They've also tried to unify items and files, whether it be life cycles, the way they're managed, integrating properties between items and files. Really try to connect those if you'd like to. Bill of material side of Vault, the Item Master really can be almost kind of a completely independent way to manage your bill of materials, but it can be driven from your CAD models. Obviously, it's kind of that you have the link there between the file and the items, but at that point, a bill of material can be manipulated on its own within Vault if you're using the Item Master. So that's something we'll show here as well. And then the last one, Vault Office, is another tool that's been added to the Autodesk suite, or I guess the Autodesk kind of list of products basically on the Vault side. And what that is it's kind of a more less expensive version of Vault Professional. So you don't need to have Inventor, you don't need to have AutoCAD or any of the other tools, but it allows managers and supervisors and maybe other downstream people in the maybe the ECO process or the release process of a part to be able to go into Vault and manipulate some of those items. So promote a file or an item from work in progress to released, for instance, or sign off on an ECO process. So which up until that point, you either had to have the Vault Professional full version. Obviously, the thin client can let you look at drawings, but it didn't allow you to actually engage in some of the other activities within Vault unless you had the full-blown professional version. So we'll show all those things here in just a little bit of a demonstration. So first of all, we'll get into the CAD integrations with AnyCAD. So I'm going to jump over to Inventor, and I've got a new assembly created here just within, this is just the regular Inventor assembly, and now I'm going to show how to add a couple of parts from Creo. So over in the Place menu, under the Assemble tab, we're going to go down and select the Place Imported CAD Files. So we'll select that. We're going to get into to another folder here, and within here, I'm going to the first one here is a PRT file, which is a Creo file, and this is just a hinge one. So we're kind of creating assembly here, and it pops open a window to allow you to reference the original model or convert it. So you do have the option within this interface, and then also to choose what else do I want to bring with it here: solids, surfaces, meshes, etc. And over on the left, we can load the model in and be able to preview it before. But after setting up those model or the options here, I'm going to go ahead and select reference the original model. We'll hit OK. And it's going to pull that into Inventor, into our assembly, and we're just going to click to place it. And let me zoom out on that a little bit. So there's my first part of the hinge, and obviously we can continue placing the same part as with the Inventor assembly interface, but I'm just going to cancel out of that. And now if you look over on the left, you can tell that it's got a little bit different icon for this imported AnyCAD type of file. All right, so we're going to put in the other hinge now. Let's go place, again, imported CAD file. We'll grab hinge 2 and hit OK. We're going to leave the same option set in the dialog box, and now we can place the second piece of the this hinge assembly. All right, we'll hit OK there. And I'm just going to bring those two together using the regular mates and options for constraining within Inventor. So if I go to constrain, let's put the pin, use the pin joint here to place those together. Let's apply that one, and now let's just let's also mate here the sides, and it looks like we just need to flip that. There we go. And I'm just going to apply that one and then hit OK. Now these, obviously we can still rotate my assembly here or put it in an angle, continue constraining it, but I'm just going to leave that as is. So now we're referencing the two Creo parts, and go ahead and save this. And let's save this as hinge assembly. Save that there, and I'm already logged into Vault, so I like to use the Vault browser when I'm working within Inventor. That way you don't have to worry about, obviously bouncing back and forth between Vault. But I'm going to go ahead and select that, and we're just going to go and check it in. And it shows we're bringing it into my third-party CAD folder. There's the two Creo parts, so it shows the appropriate icons, and then my Inventor assembly. And let's just call this, maybe this is a assembly from vendor using Creo parts. We'll hit OK there. It's now checking it into Vault, and now you can see the white circle there means that it's now what's on my local machine that I just saved now matches what's out in Vault. That's what the white circle kind of tells me the Vault status. So let's go back out here. We'll go to the third-party CAD folder. I'm just going to refresh that, and here's the hinge. We can see it has the where used information now built in, so that hinge part is now used in the hinge assembly. If I look at my hinge assembly and the uses, I can see both my Creo parts there. And so now going forward, if I ever have changes to those hinges, I just do a checkout, on that file. Actually, probably the piece parts there as well. Let's check both those out, and then we go back into Inventor, update the files at that point, and then check them in again. So nice to be able to keep the relationship there without having to convert to an IGES or to an Inventor part. All right. All right. The next thing I'd like to show is the new copy design interface. So I'm just going to grab in another folder here this trailer hitch. I've got an assembly that I want to start a new assembly, and I'm going to use some other previous designs. Maybe they're going to change it a little bit. So I do want to do a copy design on this. Maybe some of the parts are going to remain the same. Some are going to be copied, some are going to be reused. So we have a lot of the same type of options as we had before. They've just kind of enhanced the interface and actually added a few more features. So we're just going to right click on that and go copy design. And one of the nice things is that we now have the ability to add more than one assembly. In the past that wasn't an option. So I'm going to go here and just hit add and say, okay, I want to actually pick the other sub-assembly in this list, the mounting weldment, and add that to it as well. So they just you add as many as you want, not just assemblies, but parts and drawings as well. And now we've got the ability to start adding a naming scheme or numbering scheme. Let's say the new files here I'm going to actually put into a sequential numbering scheme. So I can just go to the numbering schemes here. Let's go default, make it sequential. That one's shown. Hit OK there. And now if I refresh this, let's go over to numbering. Oh, I think I had to add these in. Oh, sorry. I haven't copied them or done anything with them yet. Right now they're all set to reuse. So if I go copy to on this top level assembly, let's put it into maybe another trailer hitch subassembly or subfolder. I mean, let's go trailer. We'll call this 2.0. It's the new version of the trailer hitch. All right, we'll add that one in there. Hit OK there. now we see it's starting to add the new sequential numbers. So we can do the same thing with these. You know, if we're adding all new parts, maybe some of these are going to remain the same. So we'll just select a couple of them. And like before, you have the option to replace if there's some existing, maybe a hardware that's just getting a little bit larger, replace it with something you've already got out there. We can exclude it from the new assembly or reuse it. By default, everything's set to reuse here, but let's say we want to copy these also. But instead of copying to this folder, we're going to put them into the hardware common folder. So we'll just copy to that one. And again, it added the sequential numbering scheme, which we applied to this entire design. So over in the bottom right, we do have the option to kind of see the where used for some of these parts. If I pick one, we can see, okay, if there are any other parents here that maybe I'm not aware of, we can check out the where used during this, and then also see what folder that's going to be loaded into. So if I pick some of these other ones, they're going to be loaded into, I guess this is the current folder. Obviously in this case, we're putting it into that new Trailer Hitch 2.0 folder. There's a few more options up on top if we want to include library files or attachments with it. Some of the things you can do is, you know, copy designs are now, they'll support overlaid DWG files on a particular on a part assembly. It'll show up here, and you can do a copy design on those. And obviously the drawings, if I did have any drawings associated with this, they would come in as well. As soon as we're all done, actually let's go ahead and copy this bottom piece as well. Let's just do a copy of that into the original folder, and instead of changing it, and then maybe we'll copy this one to our hardware folder again. Okay, so as you can see, the names are changing. If we didn't want to use the sequential numbering scheme, you can always go back to the old way of down here on the numbering. You'd be able to add a prefix or a postfix to the existing assembly. Maybe you weren't ready to add part numbers to it yet. That's all still available there as well. Okay, so as soon as we're done, we hit OK, and it generates all those new files and moves them into the appropriate folders. So if we hit OK on that, now we've got the Trailer Hitch 2.0, and there's my new assembly. And if we look at the uses underneath it, you can see those three parts. It's still referencing a couple of the originals, and then the new one that we created would be these other two sequential, and this is the original file. All right, so hopefully you get a chance to use that. It does have some added capabilities there. All right, now the next couple of things we're going to take a look at is how items have now been sort of integrated more with the file side as far as life cycles go, and being able to manage. Prior to that, like I said, the bill of material, which is the item master side, was somewhat, and still is, it is kind of an independent way to manage bill of materials, but obviously we want to drive those from our CAD models typically to, you know, to save time. But once an item is created, you then have the ability to manipulate that, and we'll show a few of those options here in a second. Back to the, I guess on the file side anyway, I'm just going to show under the Tools, Vault Administrator, Vault Settings, you know, some of the places that things have changed. One of the ways it's changed is under the behaviors on life cycles. We can now kind of manage, you know, item life cycles in addition with file life cycles, and just have them kind of drive each other. So if we look at, let's say for instance, the basic release process here. If I go do an edit on that and come over here to the security, down below here, these associated files, we can have security for associated files of items. Now in this case, if I hit the check mark here to configure it, you know, and I want my items driven by the same life cycles as my files, we can hit configure and then choose how we want that to happen. So in this case, we can apply item security to associated files, apply custom security to associated files. So if you have your own, if you want to have a separate life cycle process for items versus files, or just clear the security override from associated files. So that's kind of a new feature that allows you to kind of manage just one section of life cycles and then have it control both the items and the files. Another thing that they've added now for items, let's go get into an item life cycle. So up on top here, I'm going to go to, say, assemblies. Let's grab the basic release process for assemblies, and then go into the transitions and say I'm ready. You know, so when you're moving between life cycle states, we can control who can see that, who has the ability to move those different or move the items to the next state. So one common process is to go from work in progress to released, or potentially, in review to released. So let's take a look at that one. If we go edit, they've added a few more actions in here. So if you check the box next to one of these, it's going to try to, and most of these are just checks. So they're kind of rules that are applied. So on the bottom here are some of the new ones. So obviously we want to check that the child items have been released. So you don't want to be able to release an assembly without the children, if the children of that assembly are still at work in progress. Somebody might still be modifying them. So we want to make sure the children are released. There's also here the option to check that associated file links are up to date or file links are released. So that kind of makes everything stay in sync. If you have items linked to files, most of the time you'd want those to kind of move down, throughout the life cycle process at the same time and together. So that's what these are kind of built to do. All right, so let's get out of there. A couple more things on the administration side that you can set up. On the items down below here, there's property write back. So if you have that checked, you can synchronize on your item with your associated files within the items and have the properties that maybe get brought in on the item side. Like if you do integrate with an ERP system, you can bring back cost. You can have a title maybe associated with item, and you can then write those properties back to the file itself. All right, and there's also a checkbox here to allow the user to assign a category when you create a new item. So if that's checked, it'll just kind of pop up a window and let you pick that specific item. Also want to kind of show on the change orders, one of the things they've added here, which I think is definitely a good thing, because there are a lot of companies out there that only use the file management, don't necessarily use the item master. So now they've added the option here to restrict file and item lifecycle state changes to change orders. That used to be only items, but now we can allow the change order system to actually drive the files, lifecycle process throughout that ECO workflow. Okay, and then on the bottom also restrict the change orders from moving out of work state based on file and item lifecycle state. So again, that's kind of a way to constrict. If it moves out of work state, does it have to be in review? That's typically the case. So just some more control there around files when it comes to change orders, which is a good thing. Okay, a couple other things with in related to the items and integrating with files. I did kind of mention it before. Let's just jump over here to the item master, and I'm just going to pick this plug. And so when you're generating items, and I guess before I do that too, if you haven't used items, this is that new file we just created. It's fairly easy to do. So if I want to manage, or you create this as a bill of materials and export it out to an ERP system, or just to have to manipulate in Excel, the way to do that is up here to assign update item. So if I do that, we get a little, so there's already a reference, cannot be assigned, okay. That. Already got. Let's see if this one has an item already associated with it. So hit OK. It's creating it's mapping this to an item now. Hit OK on that. Cancel. Let's see. Let's go to folder. Okay. Oh, I guess your number is already in use. Oh, okay. That's what the deal was there. I already used a sequential map number. Let's do a user define one in this case, and then hit OK. Okay, there, it created my item for that part. I think that was probably the issue on the last one too. So apologize for that. But when you create an item for a particular part, now notice over on the right, it kind of shows if there's a link to the item, and we can just hold Control and click on that, and now it just brings you right to the item in the item master. So kind of a nice way if you're working in file or with files to get right back into the item master to the right spot. And here, obviously sometimes on the file side you might just have it called bracket or kind of more of a generic name, but once it's in your bill of materials, we want the part number. I usually encourage putting the part numbers in on the file side as well, so you have them available, and then just copy over the same number into the actual item master. But what I was going to show is the ability here to write back file properties. So I'm going to select this plug and take a look at the general information here. And in this case, I've got a title up on top here, this title plug. And if I want to send that back, maybe I just created this on the item side. If I want to send that back to the file, we can do that here by going Synchronize Properties. If you select on the General tab, go to Associated Files, and just pick Synchronize Properties. It's going to show you which one it's going to synchronize. We'll hit OK. And then it went ahead and updated the original value because the title was not populated on the file. And now it's been updated to plug. So it's just showing that that did happen. So now if I went over to that particular, if I go to folder, and now if we show, say, we're showing that particular, let's see, that property. Let's just go edit properties on it. And there it is. Okay, so now we've added plug into that title on the file as well. So nice to be able to manipulate it on the item side and then send those properties back to the file itself. All right. A couple other things here on the item master I was going to show you. Let's just take a look at an assembly here. And what they've done is they've added a few other types or other properties now to be able to better manage the materials workflow, like raw materials within your bill of materials. So you obviously don't always want to put in. Let's expand these out a little bit. Take a look at this particular assembly or with some sub-assemblies. You don't always want to be able to, or say, model up the oil or grease or stuff that you probably wouldn't create a model for or a part for on the CAD side, but there are stuff like that you may need in bill of materials. So they've allowed for that, and that isn't necessarily new, but now they've added some other properties over on the right to kind of better manage that. So we've got unit quantity and item quantity, and then we also have row type. So we can see if this came in from CAD or if it's just a manual entry into this bill of materials. So just to kind of show how that works, let's take a look at the rotary assembly, and I'm going to go ahead and open that up. So that allows me to manipulate it now. Let's go edit. And on the bill of materials side, if I want to add in, say, oil to this one. So I'm going to select on the top, we'll go add row, and we'll go from existing item. And so this is something that I don't have modeled up, but I'm going to put it in there. Let's just type in oil, see what we get. Okay, so there's my part number for it. It's just oil. And in this case, I have to enter in my position number. I'm just going to put it as 4th in the, so just where it shows up here in my bill of materials. And it's set for ounces, so most parts are going to be each, but in the case of oil, you might have it ounces or gallons or a particular quantity, a unit that obviously matches in volume. So let's just go 1.8 ounces of oil, and then over on the right we can put in the unit quantity, 1.8, and the item quantity we're just going to leave that as 1 because it's one item in this case. But notice it says manual. This was added manually. Now if I save and close that, go back to the rotary V assembly, now we've added that one in there. And obviously with the entire, the quantities here shows the unit quantity for each, but if I want to say, okay, how much oil do I need for this entire assembly? We can switch over here to the parts only, and then we see each part listed one by one, and then for the oil here, which is this part number, they added up the total ounces that are used in the entire assembly, which is 13.2. So that kind of gets you your complete raw material requirements for the entire assembly. Okay. Moving on, and they've done a few other things here on the item side just to try to enhance, I guess as far as the other types of things you can edit certain properties right within the screen. If you're in the, say, edit open mode on the bill of materials side, some of these can be added or modified, right here in the screen over here. You can see there's an up. We can up that to different values. So which is kind of an enhancement. You don't have to worry about, in this case, opening up each particular item. We can manipulate those right within the assembly and right on the grid. Okay. Anyway, so those are some of the item enhancements. And let's take a look at the last one, I guess, is the, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint slide. Basically, if you look at the Vault Office, what that allows you to do is basically kind of integrate some of these other parts of the company to be able to sign off on a change or approve a change or be able to move a file from or have the ability to say yes or no, moving it from in review to released, those types of functions. So really that's kind of what the Vault Office Thick client is all about. It's going to have the same interface, but we're able to select the file, move it to released. You're probably not going to be doing any check-in, check-outs, obviously, but it is, like I said, a much less expensive option than getting the full-blown Vault Professional for CAD users. All right. So that's really the main things I guess I wanted to touch on today on the what's new in Vault 2016. So thanks for your time, and have a great day.